I'm gonna, that's gonna. And Darcy is my workers.
My sister was up at Union Christian, she thinks it's better than the Rovers. ROBIS. She's my,
Being 6 p.m. on Monday, March 3rd, a call to order the city council regular meeting. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Roll call, please, Jenny.
Mayor Bobo,
Here.
council members Robinson,
here.
Mulebauer,
Here.
Udvig, here, Faunus, here.
On to the approval of the agenda. Anybody want to discuss anything under the approval for the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I have a motion from Councilman Udvig. Do I have a second?
Second, Mayor.
Second by Councilman Robinson. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All same sign. Meeting open to the public. Anybody wishing to speak, please come forward.
Is it the consent?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I jumped the gun. My fault.
Just wait.
I am the only one to sign up.
How did I know that? Oh, consent agenda. Yes, indeed. Sorry. Consent agenda. Anybody have anything they want to discuss on the consent agenda?
Only discussion is I'll be abstaining because my name's on there under items.
Okay. Anybody else? Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Make the motion, Mayor.
Motion by Councilman Robinson. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Councilman Faunus. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I was late.
Okay, opposed? Abstain?
Aye.
Abstained by Councilman Mulebauer. On to the meeting open to the public, sorry. So you're up.
Oh, yeah, I'm ready.
Please state your name and address.
Name's Anthony C. out of West St. Francis, over there. That's called Franny Town. Address is 4852 239th Northwest, right up Roanoke. Zip code 55070. Okay, what do I have here? I want to talk about tourism, and I don't know how you take it to a vote through the community, but there's precedent for it out west, where a home rule community votes in private gaming versus tribal gaming. Now, to do that quickly in this state, you need to show that you're not going to compete with a tribe, and you have to get approval through the racing commission. But if we voted in like Blackhawk did, where I happen to be undefeated at their poker room, but that's another story. I got called back here. We could just vote it in if everybody wanted to. I can tell you, you people are at the limit of your enjoyment with the gaming and even the gambling and stuff. It's getting kind of dry around here. But as far as lobbying for support, I mean, I've worked with the Mille Lacs tribe. I was hired by the Ojibwa and released by the Chippewa. I think they're out of Wisconsin. We've got South Dakota Sioux doing powwows at the high school. I think the band member that used to live here, Rhett, inducted me into the Sioux, it sounds like, out of Red Lake when I was in 8th grade. So I'm the closest thing you got to a wind talker or someone prepared to claim chieftain status, but I don't think we have to go that far. I kind of like the guy and he's older than me. He's just not around right now. Last I heard he's in LA. But that's how the politics go in this state that I understand. And if you doubt the viability, just look up Black Hawk, Colorado and Central City, and they get buses through there from all the way up the hill. It's really hard to pay a business to travel uphill, even though that's the distribution center of the states. I don't know, what else do I have here? Okay, for tourism, we could do like river tours down to Anoka with canoes, rafts, and my idea would be jet boats that can jump a dam, but that's it in the future. All you have to do is monitor the water flow in the spring, because my dad almost lost some bodies. One day I was a little too tired to accompany them. And you really got to watch the current flow. We'd have to have someone locally monitoring that constantly, like every 15 minutes. And that would be a good place to start, with just canoe and raft tours going down to the bar district in Anoka. There's a landing on the left right before the dam with a walkway and stuff. And I believe snowmobiles use it now. And as far as being a home rule community, I can tell you what's kept me out of trouble these 50 years is being able to understand government and sidestep a jurisdiction. In St. Francis, we need to loosen the grip on these zoning restrictions and be a little more flexible over periods of time, because we've got a lot of great ideas here, and there has to be a time period to establish those opportunities. It's not, I mean, supposedly the president's going to be reducing regulations at the rate of replacing 1 out of 100 that he gets rid of. Now, every time you get rid of one regulation, it creates undefined risk. So you really need to add that regulation in if you get rid of a bunch of them, or you never know what the worst case scenario is. You might be dealing with me alone eventually, who knows? But name's Anthony. I'm still here, taking interest in the community. I want to put you on the map, so don't let the county tell you can't.
Thank you, Anthony. Thanks for your input. Anybody else from the community wish to speak? All right, we'll move on at 6:07. On to special business. Fire service consolidation presentation by Triad. Dave, or do you want Charlie to just go here? Yep. Perfect. Welcome, Charlie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor, councilors, city staff, thank you for having me this evening. I've been working with the city, both cities, and elected officials for about the last 11 months on this project. So this is a chance to meet all of you. I've worked with a few of you throughout this process, but a chance to meet all of you and give you a brief on where the project is at this time. So let me just bring up my, excuse me for a minute. So I'm going to go through an introduction, myself, the company, what we've been doing for the last 11 months, and then the structure on where we're at so far, and then your feedback at the end of the meeting if you desire to do that. So my name's Charlie Smith, as you saw in your agenda. The company I founded is Triad Paradigm. We're a consulting firm out of Coon Rapids, and I guess I'm the consulting firm. So I'm the CEO, founder of the organization. We started back in 2022. After I had retired for a period of time from the fire service. And to give you my fire service background, I'm 30 plus years in the fire service. I was a fire chief at SPM, if you're familiar with that, Spring Lake Park Plain, Mounds View. I was there for about 6 years and then retired and then moved on. I'm also a veteran, both in firefighting and military police. But the time I had at SPM really gave me a lot of insight into what it's like to manage a fire district with multiple cities. So SPM, if you know anything about SPM, it's a nonprofit corporation that contracts with the 3 cities to provide fire protection. So there's a lot of moving parts within that fire district to make things go, and a lot of different personalities. Each community has its own personality, its own needs. So there's a lot of different aspects of that type of leadership and management that you have to really take into account to make these things successful. So that's me. Today, we are going to go over from a high level, some preliminary findings, and then get your feedback. The project description, when we started out, is mapping our current fire realities for you between the 2 departments, between St. Francis and Bethel. And what does it look like today, and what can we expect in the future for any type of merger, combined operation that you're already conducting? You're already into the big part of that relationship where you're already working together with the 2 communities. But to give you data and other types of information to make decisions as elected officials as time goes on. I'm just providing you information. It's going to be up to you in the future to make any decisions on where you would like this to go and things of that nature. So we started the shared services study, transparency, and to determine our response model, staffing, facilities, funding, the funding formula, and the JPA structure. So some of the things that when we first started out, when I was meeting with the different groups, elected officials, firefighters, one of the big things that was a recurring theme, not only with the city of St. Francis, but also with Bethel, is fiscal implications of this type of arrangement. And how much is this going to cost? What does this look like for the future? And how does it all work out? And who's going to pay what? What kind of percentages that look like? So there was a lot of concern with that. One of the other concerns, or one of the other requirements, is that it would be scalable. So your community and Bethel together are far ahead of a lot of other communities that are just now realizing the staffing issues that they may be having, recruiting, retention issues, and the ability to provide fire and EMS and emergency service around the clock, 24 hours a day. Throughout Minnesota, we are having a significant issue with hiring and retaining firefighters, not only on the volunteer paid on call side, but also on the full-time career side. It has switched within about probably the last 5 years significantly. So we are having issues, and undertaking an endeavor like you're doing right now is putting yourselves in the forefront of taking care of this problem before it becomes a problem for you, before you hit crisis mode, when you no longer have firefighters to respond to emergencies, so on and so forth. So we're going to give you that information as this study comes out, as we release the final findings. So past and current relationships that you have with the city of Bethel together, this will help you in the future on whatever you decide. What I found when talking to people is you've already gone through the really rough part of any kind of relationship that you may have in the future. And that rough part is the combining of personalities and the meshing of culture. That's really the most difficult part that you're going to find. There's a lot of dissension, a lot of anger, a lot of angst just for that change. You've already achieved that process. And kudos to Chief Schmidt there and having to work through this. It is a very contentious thing. It can be very, very difficult as you go through, which I'm sure at the start you probably saw. JPA structure, one of the things we'll talk about. So our project goal areas are you're seeing the slides, right?
Mm-hmm.
Slide, okay. I don't see them in front of me. Work with city staff, identify staffing and program strategies, which is going to be something that you'll see for the future, is how do we anticipate any issues that we're going to have, and how do we plan for those issues that might occur in the future, whether it's lack of retention, unexpected retirements, increased call volume, all the things that affect deploying a fire service inside your community, and for it to be effective, which is a big key. Additional project goals that we're working on is a strategic plan. So at the end of this project, you'll have a 3 to 5 year strategic plan that we'll operate off of. Advising an organizational change process, which we've already been doing, and then a draft JPA creation as a benchmark, if you will, for you to go off of should you decide to engage in that relationship in the future after all this information. So just some things that we find in the study that as we have not only worked through with your 2 communities, but also other fire departments, other experiences, and things that work well, and then things also to watch out for that could submarine a project, could destroy a project, could cause relationships and harm throughout both communities. So some of the major sections, I'll go through these really quick. Anybody have any questions up to this point? Councilors, Mayor?
No.
Got a hole right now, sorry. I just got one real quick. So you can see consulting, and is this the primary, this kind of agreement? So is this your consulting work? Are you consulting other places?
I am not at this time. You're my first one that I've consulted with. I do have other employment that I work at this time. So this is not my full-time job, but this project was a lot of work and is a lot of work. So, but no, this is not my primary employment. Could be in the future, right? Maybe I'll retire again at some point and then we'll kind of go from there, you know, kind of play that game.
Anybody else? That's all like.
Not at this time.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. We met with stakeholders, when we met with the first group in the initiation meeting, both communities, we set out who we wanted to talk to and who we needed to get that information of, at least initially. So I could get a good feel for the organization and develop basically a picture of what we're looking at, what we're dealing with, and what that end result would be. To me, from this perspective, as a consultant, culture, your fire department culture is probably the biggest thing, at least from my perspective, that's going to affect how anything works out, whether it's successful operations, whether it's successful mergers, and providing great service to the community. So figure out where the culture's at, and then we can dive in from there. So we worked and met with city staff, which was fantastic. I want to give kudos to the city staff that I worked with and that I met. Fantastic staff. You're blessed to have fantastic staff here in the city, and your firefighters. All of the firefighters I met with were very open, honest, respectful, and they're passionate and dedicated to their duties. And I think you see that out on the street here and in community events and things like that. So you do have a great department and a great city. So kudos to you that you get to work with such wonderful people on a daily basis. So we met with that, and then we really developed our strategy after that and who we were going to meet with. Those are some good moments to be able to really get meshed in to what's going on here and why this study was commenced in the first place and where you need to go. Past and current collaboration, we talked about that a little bit already. Those agreements that you've already have in place for the contract with Bethel will already help or will help anything that you decide to do in the future. There's a lot of parameters in there that are already lined up, that have already occurred. Should you decide to do a full merger, that have already given you many, many steps ahead instead of starting from ground zero. So this has been a 2-year process, at least, a 2-year process already. You're already ahead in where you would already have to be to start from. You probably add another 2 years to that to be able to accomplish these type of objectives. So, and then prior to that, even auto aid agreements, mutual aid agreements, working with each other on the fire scene, within each other's cities, things like that. So those were already in place and already cooperative. The firefighters spoke well from Bethel. The firefighters spoke well of St. Francis firefighters and how they've worked well together in the past and effective. So those relationships are really key to building something great and something new for the future. Staffing model will also be one of the things that you will see when this is final. So the current staffing model you're under is effective right now, but is that going to be an effective model for the future? Knowing what we know about recruiting and retention, especially of our senior and our veterans, retention especially for volunteer firefighters is approaching. Some departments can be 2 to 3 to 4 years, and you invest a lot of time and money in new firefighters, a lot. And we want to make sure that for the future that those people are sticking around. So what kind of strategies can we do to help that? But also how do we hire those people? But in lieu of being able to maintain our our core of volunteers and paid on-call personnel, what are we looking at in the future if we start losing that pool? What are our models going to be? What do we have to transition to? And what are some of those options to transition to as you move forward? So from personal experience, I've worked all the way from volunteer, a very small volunteer department when I was in college, all the way to communities that have 120, 100,000 population, and two very different organizational deployment models. But we're all having the same problems when it comes to people. And we're not alone. In public safety in general, nursing, military, service occupations are running short on people to do the job, which is a big change from when I started, when we all probably started, when it was very competitive. So there'll be a lot in staffing model, and there's an analysis on your staffing. What are some options for the future? Your response times, which your response times here, according to NFPA standards, are pretty darn good for structure fires and EMS. You do very well in that endeavor, and that's something we want to make sure that we keep, especially as your community grows. Thankfully, a lot of your growth is centered right here around the 47 corridor, so that helps because the fire station is right here, so that helps a lot. Instead of, I've seen communities that put fire stations in places that are really far away from where they probably should be. So, great. And by the way, beautiful facility, very beautiful facility. Your calls for service, analysis on those. Your calls for service are what I would say traditional fire service blend of about 70% EMS calls and about 30% fire and other service calls. So you're not out of the ordinary on that at all, with probably about a 10% increase per year for service. There's some dips in some of the data. It was a little difficult. The COVID pandemic really threw an anomaly into our data where we expected a massive amount of calls and we actually didn't right when the pandemic started. So calls actually went down. But traditionally, it's about 10% a year. So you can expect that your call volume will increase as time goes on, especially as communities become more and more dependent on the fire service and the police department for things that we maybe would have taken care of ourselves when we were growing up or when we were younger, things like that. So there's a lot of dynamics that play into those calls for service. Capital asset analysis. So this is more for the Bethel side of things. Should you move forward with the merger, on what does that look like? Your community is in very good position capital-wise. You have a new fire station, you have new apparatus, and a capital replacement plan. So you've done a lot of the heavy lifting and a lot of good work already that puts you in a very strong capital position here. Now, Bethel, on the other hand, is not in as strong a position as you are. So there's some considerations on should you decide to merge. What does that look like? How do those assets get transferred? Some of the options would be to lease equipment if it gets all blended together, purchase, all those options will be included in there as well. So those will have to be considerations that will be taken as well for capital asset. But you here are in very good position for capital. So it's good to see. Your ISO rating within your community is a 6.9. Does everybody know what the ISO rating is? Some do, some don't. So the ISO rating, Insurance Service Office, is a measure of structural fire capability and response within a certain community. So the higher the number, the better your ability to handle structure fires is. So yours here in your community is pretty standard for a community of this size, and the water supply that you have here, which is about 40% of a score, is the water supply you have. So the more fire hydrants you have, the better score you get there. But it's not an end-all be-all. It's a measure of effectiveness within the community, and it also, for some communities and some insurance agencies, determines what they'll charge you for fire insurance. And that, as the number goes up, traditionally your fire insurance costs go down. So a class one, which I think there's maybe 30 in the nation, nationwide, there's not that many. They're going to have those are usually your Los Angeles city, big places like that. So now there's a cutoff in there. So you're a 6.9 and it goes 1 through 10, 10 being no fire protection at all. When you get about to a 5 is when you stop seeing significant insurance benefits for homeowners, but you still continue to see significant insurance benefits with class change for our commercial occupancies and our business owners. So that continues on throughout that. And they won't give you numbers. ISO won't give you numbers on what one change will be. But there's some theoretical cost savings that can happen on an annual basis with better fire protection. So you get hopefully a break with an improvement in ISO rating. You get a break in insurance and a more effective fire department, which is really the big thing that we're shooting for, is making sure that our fire department is effective. It's a benchmark. It's not an end all be all, but it's one of those benchmarks that we can say, okay, this is where we're at here. And it's an official nationwide recognized rating. So when you're fire service to fire service or insurance to insurance, people know what you're talking about. So there's a good piece in there on your ISO rating. And then to the kind of the last three are kind of the meat and potatoes of what any kind of relationship will look like over the long term. Funding formula options, which is one of the big questions we ask, is how do we figure which community pays what for fire service, fire and EMS, fire department costs. And surprisingly, when I was running the numbers on most of the funding formula options that will be included within the study, they're very close in breakdown for cost between the formulas. Some formulas are extremely easy, like a per capita formula, and then divided by percentage of population. But all of them are really close, with the exception of if you decide to split fire department costs 50-50. That would be unusual, but it would be the only option that would be kind of far out there. The funding formula options kind of run the gamut. There's 6 really common ones that are going to be in there for you to look at and see which option works for you. And a lot of different parts of each funding formula, which can cause the formula to vary quite a bit. But something that for you there. Fire taxing district option, which about 2 years ago, the Minnesota legislature passed fire taxing district legislation, which allows communities to enter into a JPA, two or more communities to enter into a JPA with each other, and then form a fire taxing district, which is, with the financials will then be handled like a school district. It becomes its own entity within the community. And then that entity is governed by a board of directors who are appointed elected officials from each community. And then they operate autonomously from the cities. They issue levies and all of that, all by themselves. So there's a heavy administrative load that comes with that because now you're your own entity. But we're going to include that for an option in the future, should your district grow as you move forward with this, and you start off with Bethel and St. Francis. Once other communities see what you're doing, they may want to get on board with what you're doing. As it grows, from my experience, trying to coordinate with 3 cities and 5 cities in the end, for fire protection with all the varying different things, it became an administrative load that was extremely heavy on the administrative staff for the fire department. So just having one people to report, one group essentially to report to makes it and they're the decision makers, makes it very, very easy. Imagine if you had 5 different bosses that wanted different things. Or some of you might, I don't know. Some of you might, but it makes it for a lot of footwork and can be frustrating at times. So, but that'll be an option in there as well. There is one fire department in the state of Minnesota right now that's operating on a taxing district, and that is OK Area Fire District, south of Duluth, and they have 9 cities and 9 cities and townships within their service area, and they started off as an EMS taxing district. So there are models here in Minnesota that have gone into this type of agreement. There are a lot of fire districts as well within the state of Minnesota. There are a lot of JPAs, surprisingly, throughout Minnesota that have a lot of examples on where things work and where things don't work. Because there have been fire districts that have dissolved. Most notably, the latest one was, I think it's called West Suburban now, is a new fire department. So Long Lake, out in that area, not Osseo, but out in that area. So and then there's some new ones that are popping up as they go. So that is, the financials are the big one. I know that was a main theme throughout the study with input was what are the financials going to look like for the communities, especially St. Francis, because you're the community that has the economy of scale. That's the largest one. So you're going to be essentially the big player in any relationship around here because you are the largest community and have the largest fire department. And then at the end, there'll be some JPA considerations for you. There'll be a draft JPA for you to look at, some other parameters that are included in there. First and foremost, I should say I'm not an attorney, so I can only put things down that are suggestions, but a lot of this stuff in the end will be determined by our attorneys. But it'll give you a starting point for you to look at based on a lot of other JPA models around the state. And engineer that what it looks like, it'll be what looks like will fit best for your communities. Because everyone's unique, right? Even though we all have fire departments, we all have police departments, we all have governing bodies, all our communities have their own personality and we have our own unique risks and hazards and personalities that come with our communities. So what works next door might not necessarily work for you here. So something tailored unique for the city of St. Francis, city of Bethel, and anything that may come in the future. So where are we at on milestones? The next slide is anything you see outlined in green on this slide is complete. The blue, the study draft is in its second draft, so that's coming up on being final here this month. The JPA, same thing, will be in its final draft stage here this month as well. And then the compensation study and the strategic plan also are a work in progress. One note on the strategic plan, talked to Chief Schmidt about the strategic plan because if this relationship comes together, it's going to change what this looks like for the future. So this will change your strategic plan and the input that goes in to a strategic plan for what we're looking at in the next 3 to 5 years. So when I talk to Chief Schmidt, we're going to work on a structure of a strategic plan and get the basics down, but make it scalable and amendable to what a relationship may look like in the future to make sure that we have the bases covered, but also leave something open for change as time goes on, because we would expect there'll be some different parameters that will fall into that plan should this relationship take off. So timeline, we'll have the majority, or I'll have the majority of your items finished by the end of this month. The big one that'll be out there will be the strategic plan and maybe some fine tuning on the compensation plan with the data in there. So those may carry on into April, and don't worry, I'll stay on for that to make sure that this project's complete. And then we'll work with city staff and figure out when everything's in the final and make sure that you get all of the data and all the reports and the study, and we'll go from there. So that's our timeline. So end of the month for the big ones for this. The study is probably right now sitting close to about a 40-page document. So there's a lot of information in there to digest and to look at as time goes on. So any questions from mayor, council?
Got some, I'll start. Kevin, you got, wanna go?
I'm glad we were able to get a grant to fund this little process, a big process. Joe, Kate and I were in quite a few meetings, many meetings when this first got started. And during your presentation, you said, should we go forward? It should be when we go forward. It's been a long process. I'm just glad we can help a neighbor, and it sets a tone for some things down the road. I know other communities now are venturing off into building new buildings and structures and stuff. And as we talked about for a year and a half, that how much money is being spent, the communities are bearing the burden, and it is a burden, tax burden. But the communities are bearing the burden of duplication of equipment. And when, fire engines are going for 1.4 million and you have a year and some waiting period, but yet some cities, their ego is in the way, and there's some things in the way of progress. And to me, joining forces like this is real progress. And I think a lot of cities are missing out, and the citizens are paying the price for it. So that's all I have.
Absolutely, Counselor. And thank you for bringing that up, because ego is the thing that will destroy or prohibit any relationship like this from happening. And I have not seen any of that through all the interviews I've done, all the interaction I've had with people. These are are exactly what you said. These are people that want to work together and helping out neighbors and want to make sure that we're providing, I mean, that's our responsibility, right? Provide effective fire protection, EMS, emergency services to our community. That's one of our pillars of government, is to do that. So yeah, thank you. It is a lot of work. And I want to say it again, that and reinforce the work that you've done so far is fantastic. And it's a lot of heavy lifting. And you said it's been a couple of years, and that it's been really good work so far.
I don't have any questions.
Amy? Joe?
I was just curious with the timeline, because the timeline kind of moved with the moving parts we had last year. So I was just curious. So you mentioned that by the end of the month, are we looking at like a presentation on the first meeting in April, or second meeting, or work
Good.
sessions, or?
Great question, Counselor. And I think I will speak with the city administrator on that, on scheduling things, but I think that would be easier for everyone to digest this in parts instead of look in totality, because that'd be a long meeting if we just did everything all at one time. So we could do strategic plan, we could do JPA, we could do the study, give you all the information, the documents you need to review it first, and then we can come in and start working through it. So I would think work sessions would be an appropriate place for a lot of those items, but that's up to you.
Okay.
So I can talk to administrator and work those schedule details out. But yes, absolutely.
How, I guess, I don't know how to ask this. Scale of 1 to 5, I guess, where are you leaning as far as positivity, as far as finding a good solution for everybody, or finding something you think that looks like it's going to work?
I would say from what I've seen so far, I'd say 4.5 for success. There could be some outliers out there that might cause some issues with this, and maybe even higher than 4.5. But from what I've seen so far, it has been pretty fantastic on the process that's gone on so far, and really have done the really heavy lifting to get this to be this far is pretty significant for you all to come together on your own and recognize the issue and work through it. So unless there's something odd, I would be surprised if this doesn't go through. There'll be some wrangling, I'm sure, with the JPA and, different things, some discussions but I don't think there'll be any surprises. From what I've seen, there shouldn't be any surprises whatsoever.
I think the finances are probably going to be your biggest.
Yep, absolutely. That'll be the number one, financial, operations, and capital. Those would probably take the most time and the largest discussion between the two communities. So it really is. And I'm not making this up because you hired me. This is really fantastic where you are. That's the last time I'll say it, because it's probably getting old. But it really is. And helping a neighbor out. And you will see your model become one of those models that people will ask you about, and they will say, how'd you get here? How did you do this? What steps did you need to take to make this happen? A lot of discussions in the fire service pipeline out there about consolidations and fire districting and blending together, and mostly because we're losing people as a resource. So how do we come together to make sure that we're providing what we need to our communities? So the work that you've done so far has been fantastic. So I would say the most difficult part is behind you. 99% behind you. I gotta leave some space open. I know how things work.
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
You got 2 of my 3 questions, Joe. So, you have one, it's not so much a question as more a comment. I mean, I was talking to Dave about this earlier today. I mean, this is a lot of work. There's a lot of work going into this. I don't want it to see it be some 4-year thing. It's got to be a long-term thing, because it doesn't make any sense. Because if this isn't long-term, you get another city council in, another mayor in somewhere else, and then you're back to square one because they throw it out the door. So I'm hoping this JPA can be at least 10 years or something like that. So.
Yes, sir. And for example, the JPA that governs SBM's relationship, that's a 10-year auto renewing contract is what they do. So it's, unless a city wants to bail out, it is recertified at that 10-year point automatically. And basically the councils each just sign off just to make it legitimate. But that really helped a lot to do that, because it's a lot of work. If somebody wants to get out of it, there are examples out there. So this should be long-term. The SBM relationship's been around for 80 years. 75 years, probably about 80 years now. So that's an effective one. There's a lot of districts out there that have been working very well. And there's a lot of districts out there that want to improve what they're doing. So, like we said earlier, I think the way everybody is right now and working together, but your concern is valid with changing elected officials, because it can be an outlier that could cause a surprise. So,
Well, I had the pleasure of talking to a council person from one of the three cities down in Lino, Centerville, and somebody else down there. They were all a big group, and sounds like they failed, and then unfortunately they split up. And when they split up, it ended up costing everybody in those cities a lot more money too, to where the smaller communities, I think Lino's the biggest down there, so the smaller communities really got hit with the capital stuff. So it's, once you merge too, I think it's better to stay together, and just like the, Met Council formula in a way where you got so many people pooling in.
yeah, you have to engineer your GAPA to make it very, very uncomfortable and to pull out of it. So it's not something easy that you can't just sign something, that it would be difficult. Because that's what everybody understands. We're signing in for a long term to work together. And just like you said, Counselor, is the communities change, and the smaller ones are the ones that really get hurt in a relationship when that they just don't have the economy of scale and the horsepower to build back where they need to be.
Any other questions? Well, thank you, Charlie. Look forward to your future reports here. So,
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Counselors. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
at 6:40 here, we'll reopen public hearing. Anybody wish to speak from the public? Come on up, Anthony.
Quick thing. Public hearings are only for designated things. This is
Sorry.
just, you're skipping the new business right now. You're going meeting open to the public again. Not
Oh,
that
I
it's that big of a
screwed up,
deal.
Anthony.
Oh, yeah.
There is a chance it's coming up. I screwed up twice.
It's all right. There's nothing listed under public hearings. You don't need to do. a
I
public
see
hearing.
that now. Yeah, jumping ahead. Sorry, Anthony. Old business, none. On to new business. Todd?
Actually, Mayor Council, I'm gonna take this one.
All right.
Wing it.
We'll work
Jenny.
together.
Thank you, Jim.
So city code currently states to appeal a dangerous dog or potentially dangerous dog would be to come forth to city council to have them make the agreement or the understanding of the potentially dangerous dog or dangerous dog. Our current process of an appeal is the dog is ordered by the chief of police to potentially be a potentially dangerous or dangerous dog. But we bring in an administrative hearing officer to determine that as a third party. They're unbiased and they come in and meet with Todd and myself and the owner of the dog. And then they determine whether the dog is potentially dangerous or dangerous and orders whether that dog is to be destroyed at that time. Or if they deem it to be potentially dangerous, we have a process of fines that they have to pay, and they have to meet certain insurance requirements and do status checks with the police department. So we've amended the ordinance to go with what the current process is versus what the code states of having it be brought forward to city council. Do you guys have any questions?
Joe?
No, but I love this because I do not want to tell somebody their dog's dangerous necessarily. So moving that, I mean, if it's part of the job, it's part of the job, which would be another unfortunate part of the job, along with assessments and whatnot, but I'm all for this. I think it's a great idea.
Go ahead, Dave.
I just add that in the processes we've had before, we've had Soren Maddock, who's another city attorney, and he's fair and impartial, and he asks all the questions. We have to present evidence on that, so I think the process as is should be changed in the code because it's working very well, and people get they get their chance to talk to an impartial hearing officer who many years ago did reverse us. So that would be the only thing that I would add.
I think we had one situation during my tenure that It wasn't fun. I think we gave the dog another chance from what I understand, if I remember right. But it was, it's just one of those things that I think it's better off going this route.
Mayor, Council, I can chime in real quick too. I was part of the last process where we had the administrative hearing officer, and it went, as they mentioned, very well. They asked the city, myself, just as many questions as they asked the dog owner. Want to make sure they get their facts straight. I think they made the right decision at that point. The dog owner was very receptive to the decision, and we are still, as Jenny mentioned, we are still conducting compliance checks on that dog. So it was a very smooth process, and as Councilmember Munibauer was mentioning, the process before, the time before that, it was up to council to determine if a dog should be dangerous or not. Very difficult decision for a council that may not be up to speed on all the dangerous dog laws. So.
It sounds like this process is more fair as well to the dog owner as well, so. We get so much information, but if you don't ask the question, you don't get the answer, so having somebody do it more thorough, I think is better for everybody. That's all I have.
Amy?
I don't have any question. Well, I just have one question. Hopefully this doesn't come up very often, but I like this idea too, that you have an impartial person come in, because small town, people know people, and, you know, you could be accused of, you know, being unfair one way or the other. So I think this is good. What about, dogs that are dropped off? Do we have, this is only coming up for me because this happened to my aunt just this weekend. She doesn't live here, she lives in another state. Somebody dropped off 2 pit bulls in her neighborhood. Another neighbor saw that happen, and they actually got into her fence and killed her small little dog. So it's just a question, not really about this, but do we have a
Like
big
they show up
problem?
and let them loose.
Yeah, and a neighbor saw that happen, but didn't realize what was happening. So, I mean, what about dogs at large? And we can't ask the owner if we can find them. So I'm not asking you for an answer. I'm just hoping that doesn't happen. And if it was a stray dog, does it go through the same process? Probably, I'm hoping.
Well, I guess the first part of that, we would conduct an investigation and do our best to find the owner, because they are ultimately responsible for that, whether they drop or not. If we can't, then there would be a quarantine period and things like that, that regardless if we can find that owner or not, we would conduct a quarantine period with our animal control. Keep an eye on it, make sure, you know, it doesn't exhibit certain signs. I mean, I think from that point on, then a determination would be made, whether the dog is potentially dangerous, which is typically the first step. But if we can't find an owner, then likely it's going to be an impound, in a pound. And then the pound, you know, run its course, run its time with that pound, and they would follow their policies on that. But.
I wasn't really asking you to explain it all. I was
So,
just
yeah.
hoping it doesn't happen a lot, because that's
And it does not.
good.
Fortunately.
All right, thank you.
Sarah?
I don't have any questions. I think it's a fair and good process. It is hard. I think when you're up here and we do know a lot of people in the community, and it would be I can see it sometime where it would be very tough, because you might have to say, I know that person, I can't really vote on it. So I think it takes it off of our plate and puts it on a more fair basis for our residents.
Kevin?
It seems more fair and streamlined. In the past, where would the funding come for an administrative hearing officer, and how soon could you get one? Does it condense the time waited, usually normally waiting?
Oh,
So Mayor and Council, I can take this one. So we have in our fee schedule a process for the administrative third party. We typically just schedule it. We work with either the property owner if he's here for a code issue, or with the dog issue, to line up that meeting as soon as we can. So he comes up here for other things when we've got somebody that's appealing a code enforcement dispute, or so he's on call to do this, and will come into town as we need him. So.
Okay. And also, where is the dog held during something like that? Again, we haven't had an experience like this in quite a while, but how does that get determined right away?
Well, typically, if it's, like I said, if it happened one time, it's typically start with potentially dangerous. They're issued some paperwork. We conduct a quarantine period. That could be at the person's residence. That could be at a pound. But typically it's at the owner's residence, and they, per code, they have to allow us access to keep checking on that dog. Make sure it's not exhibiting signs of rabies and things like that. If it does, then we have to take other steps. And the same would be for a dangerous dog. We would conduct that period again. Typically, they would be allowed to keep the dog until we go through this hearing process. And then, as Jenny mentioned, if it is declared dangerous, there's a lot of insurance steps and things they have to provide, at their residence in order to keep that dog within the city. So.
Well, it's good to hear, like you said, it takes some of the emotion and some of take the public portion out of the way. People can be a little more, there's more, cooperation, and they don't feel like the spotlight's on them either. It's more, let's focus on the event itself, not the individuals who own the animal cause the event, so. That's all I have.
All makes sense to me, so I don't. It's definitely a great thing to pursue. Thanks for bringing it to our attention. Ain't it, so. Gonna do roll call on this, or what do we?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 345, amending the city code, chapter 8, section 3-1, animal dog licensing and regulation.
Motion by Councilman Mulebauer. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second, any further discussion? And roll call, please.
Mayor Vogel,
Yes.
council members Robinson,
All right.
Udvig,
Aye.
Faunus,
Aye.
Mulebauer.
All right.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, Anthony, sorry, I got it right this time. Meeting open to the public. Come on up. It's 6:50. Nope. If you want to speak, you can get a couple minutes to speak.
Or pep talk and a little bit of input, I guess.
Name and address again, please.
About the doc, my name,
Yep, and name and address again, please.
Mr. Colby, 4852 239th Avenue, Northwest, St. Francis, Minnesota, 55070. About the dogs, we've got kennels at the dog park. The one on the left is a puppy pound or puppy play area. A peace officer could drop off a dog there, and there could be like 5 people that aren't raising kids or something willing to stand outside the fence and monitor them while they're waiting. If you could speed up the times and stuff, and you could put dogs there for now, I suppose. But about this merger, I know Crown went under. How are they doing? Shouldn't we be focusing there? And if we're going to be working with the bar district of Bethel, wouldn't we have to assume that or some kind of stuff? Because they don't even let you grow livestock within city limits. And their East Bethel is on the other side of 65. So like, what are we going to get out of that? And also there's Oak Grove probably has a better water supply. But it's just some stuff to think about. There isn't a border on this planet that hasn't been disputed. And if you ever need help with that, let me know, but it shouldn't be difficult. You got to open your minds and focus on the priorities, because I know I was hiking through Bethel and everything's just gone. I mean, how much debt do they have? It can't be a lot. It just must be some administrative costs. Anyone willing to give up their city name should be available, I would think. And we've also, our industrial district has been bought out by Northrop Grumman, I believe. And they headquarter out of Elk River now. So, I mean, all you can reach is like one security guard station there. They made me wait like 2 months to get cleared at the secret level. So I was like, no, I ain't waiting on a 200 grand a year job for something that sounds like work just to try to become a sales guy to sell the state defense against the feds. But, yeah, you guys got to open your minds and start thinking big, because this stuff's going to start popping. Anoka County has always been the statistically the fastest growing county in the state. And Oak Grove has no business being north of 47, I'll tell you that, with the what's it called? Is it a golf course? Yeah. Country club? No, it's golf course. What else? Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, there isn't any industrial land available, is there? You'd have to lease it from NOC, wouldn't you?
Sure on that one.
Mayor and Council, no, we do have some light industrial and business parks.
Okay, light industrial. Could you build a fire truck there?
We usually buy our fire trucks. We don't usually build them.
Anything's possible, but.
Yeah.
How many acres do we
I'd
have
love to see somebody
available?
come in and want that land for that. That'd be great.
How many acres do we have available?
Mayor and Council, I don't have that on hand with me tonight.
It can't be a whole lot, but there might be some light industrial. All right, I'll go get them.
Thanks, Anthony. Anybody else from the public? All right, close the public at 6:54. On to reports, seeing none, council member reports. Kevin.
I was able to attend the work session we had last week. It was lengthy and a lot of stuff taken care of. We tried to make up for the short meetings we've had in the past year, and I think we did just that. So I also get the privilege and the opportunity tomorrow, Kate, myself, and Paul will be going down to the Capitol building, be testifying in front of the Capitol, in front of the Capital Investment hearing, talking about Highway 47 infrastructure. And not with our hands out, but our information in front of us as far as what we need to do and move forward. Again, Kate was good enough to get us there. We achieved a $7 million grant last year, and we're asking for $3 million tomorrow. Apparently it's gonna be, there'll be what, 18 other cities there as well. And we have a pecking order that, we're not sure if we're number 8 or number 18, but, we are prepared and we'll do the city proud. We'll do the best we can.
Thanks, Kevin. Sarah?
I too attended the work session and yeah, it was a good one. It's always good to get our ideas out there at a work session, and kind of work through things. Tomorrow I will be attending my first Upper Rum River Watershed meeting, so I'm so excited. I've been trying to peck away at all the stuff that I got sent, and I'm like, this is a lot of information, so, but we'll go with that. And then, also, I just wanted to bring up, all of us should have gotten a email from Michelle Anderson about the council partaking in their little Shark Tank thing. So just, if you have a few minutes, look at that email and let her know what you're thinking.
Thanks, Sarah.
Mhm.
Amy?
I also attended the work session. It was very informative, and I had everything all in 1 week. That was last Monday, and then Wednesday I attended the EDA meeting, and then Friday and Saturday the foundational program through the League of Minnesota Cities. Mr. Mayor and I went and did that together, and it was very informative, and I look forward to the next one.
Joel?
I attended the work session and the EDA meeting, and I'm excited to hear what you guys end up with tomorrow. That's awesome.
Mhm.
So go get them. I have a pitchfork if you want it, but usually you catch more flies with honey. So. That's all I have.
Thanks, Joel. As Amy mentioned, I attended the LMC League of Minnesota City training as well. And I gotta be honest, I was pleasantly surprised. Sometimes these kind of training things can be, how shall I say, dry and boring, but I actually think they did a very good job with the speakers that kept us engaged and they learned some things. Onto the work session as well. The work session I thought was very fruitful. I thought we had a really good discussion of several different items. On Friday, with Mr. Carpenter over here with the Public Works, the MPCA came and did their every 3 to 5 year inspection of the wastewater treatment plant. So attended that, and I just only 2 real takeaways from that. One is Parrish Barton, who runs that operation, fantastic. We have on staff here somebody who really knows what he's doing. And it's not just the knowledge he has, he knows how to engage with the public. So he's a very, shout out to Parrish for the job he does. And one other takeaway from that, it's not something where you need to go into right now or whatever else, but sodium is going to be our Achilles heel with our wastewater treatment plant.
Been saying that for a few years
Yeah,
now.
well, we're slowly creeping, our numbers creeping up, and what that means is one of two things, either we reduce sodium in the system through whatever kind of programs, or we have to create something on the sewage side, which is troublesome, but we're talking 18 to 20 million dollars if we're gonna do it on the city side. So I just want to give everybody the heads up that I don't know exactly where this is gonna go yet, but sodium levels are continue to creep upwards, and we're gonna have to address this one way or another sometime soon.
You can tell the love of my life that you can't have a softener.
I didn't say it. One of the quick things, I think I mentioned it before, I'm putting together a meeting with the school district just to meet about just a general level meet and greet kind of thing to just talk about how things are going, and maybe someday pushing Bridge Street through to 47. I don't know. So we'll see where those discussions go. And lastly, but not least, Paul could go into more detail if you want to, but just be prepared you'll probably be getting some phone calls. They're going to start, I believe it is tomorrow on the trees. Is that correct, Paul?
Yes, Mayor and Council, either tomorrow or Wednesday mid morning, we'll start land clearing across the street here. That's correct.
Behind Subway there.
Straight to the north of us here. Mhm.
So that's all I have. So we got Charter Commission meeting, City Council regular meeting. Next one is March 17th. And then March 24th will be our next City Council work session. So anybody else, anything else? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Motion by Councilman Mulebauer, second by Councilman Faunus. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned at 7 PM. Thank you, everyone.